Loading again. Howdy, my name is Frankie. Pronouns are they, them. I'm the coordinator of the LGBTQ+ Pride Center in the Office of the Dean of Student Life here at Texas A&M University. I'd like to welcome everyone to this space and wish everyone a happy Pride Month. I am joined this evening by Brad Dressel and Katie Higgin of Aggie Pride and Kelly Malone of the Former Student Association. The Association of Former Students. We are discussing the building of networks and finding community after college. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge what is going on around the country and the world. This year, more than others, we are reminded that Pride Month's origins is based in the fight against systematic police brutality against queer people, and especially against trans women of color. Arguably, the most well-known example of this is the Stonewall riots that took place in June of 1969. This riot took place over 3 days in New York City. Before Stonewall, there were the Compton Cafeteria riots, which took place in San Francisco in August of 1966. Both were led by trans and gender nonconforming women of color. We encourage everyone to work within their systems of influence to promote equality for all. We will never be safe and free until all marginalized individuals are safe and free. With that being said, if you have questions you'd like to submit for the panelists, you can either comment those directly to Facebook Live or message them to the center directly. And I'd like to take this time to now turn it over to our panelists and ask them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about why they wanted to join us here today. Brad, would you like to start?
Sure.
Thank you.
I can tell who was first because, it's different from everybody's perspective. So yeah, I want to thank everybody for being here today, and a big thank you to Texas A&M's LGBTQ+ Pride Center for leading these efforts and putting together this online virtual event for us. And of course, the Association of Former Students are always partners and friends for collaborating on this event as well. I'm here today because honestly, it goes back to when I worked at the association back in the early 2000s, and I worked in the marketing and brand department, and I realized there was a need to elevate the voices of LGBTQ+ Aggies that was not being met at the time. Thankfully, we've come a ways in the last couple decades, obviously. But I remember specifically, I worked on the class newsletters, and there was a posting they came across from two men, and they had what they had called a commitment ceremony at the time, but they basically had a wedding, they had a marriage ceremony. And we posted it in the newsletter. I don't remember what class, I think it was like mid 86 or something, like 86, 87. But it just really made me stop and think for a minute that, hey, there's this group that is not really being directly served. And from that moment in like 2001, it was my personal private mission to make sure we had an official LGBTQ+ former student organization that could represent not just former students, but LGBTQ Aggies, regardless of where they go in life. And so we wanted to be there, like if they're on campus, if they're graduating, if they're looking for a job, if they're relocating to another city. Aggie Pride and our board of directors and our leadership is here to support them and collaborate with other organizations as well to support them. So that's personally why I'm here. I personally work in marketing in the tech world. I'm in San Francisco. Any Aggies in SF, you're welcome to reach out to me. And I would be glad to connect, or even if you're looking to relocate to the Bay Area, I'm always glad to connect in any way, shape, or form and help you out. That's me. Moving on to the next.
I guess I can go next. Hi, my name is Katie Higgins, and my pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am a graduate of Texas A&M University with a degree in Geographic Information Science and Technology, and I have been living up in Dallas for the past 2.5-ish years, working primarily doing geospatial data visualization. And I'm currently exploring new career opportunities right now because pandemic. So that's where I am.
Howdy, I'm Kelly Malone, class of '08. I actually have worked for the association for like 12 and a half years now, which is crazy. But I kind of came a different path. I worked at I did my undergrad at Baylor. And then I came down the road to Texas A&M and got my master's in higher ed administration because I knew that's the world I wanted to be in. And I think I was sort of an anomaly in the world of the higher ed program because I knew that I wanted to work specifically with alumni and with an alumni association. So I had the opportunity as a student to work at the Association of Former Students for one of my internships. And then that got parlayed into an opportunity to stay on and get to work with a former student base that's 500,000 strong and get to work with some incredible current students. I work in our campus programs area. So my focus mainly is with our current students. So working with our current student body, specifically our international students, as well as our graduate students. I work closely with those groups. And then also get to work closely with our campus-based constituent networks, which, you know, Aggie Pride has been a long time coming. I think it is very close to being officially our 12th. I think, in fact, it's honorarily already our 12th with just like the signature on the paper needed. But excited to be here tonight to represent the association and get to visit with y'all. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank y'all. So we're going to jump into our first panel question. And I think it's pretty topical right now, seeing as we're in the middle of a pandemic, but also in non-pandemic worlds. So sort of both of those examples. But what are some ways you found to connect after your time here in Aggieland?
I will totally jump on that one first. So I'm probably the anomaly in that I've never left College Station since I got into College Station. So I've never really had to reconnect. But I think from my perspective, it's sort of interesting in that, you know, I graduated as an undergrad and went out into the world. And then I got to come back and find out, you know, in my case, I have the value of being part of 2 networks, but, you know, I get to talk about every day and work with the Aggie network and to see what a powerful entity that really is. And, you know, we were just talking about this before we went on Facebook Live, but, you know, we talk about it all the time, but it really is that network is really a living, breathing thing that is viable. And, you know, I haven't had so much the struggle of connecting since I left, because I haven't left. I basically live and breathe Aggieland every day. But I think in my time, I've learned some cool ways to stay connected. And then it's probably, I hate to say it this way, but it's kind of true. I think you have to, there are a lot of ways to connect. There's a whole lot of different ways to connect. And if you don't want to stay connected, that's absolutely fine. Obviously, in my job, that's not exactly what we want. But there's a ton of ways to stay connected, whether it's clubs, whether it's constituent networks, whether it's coming back and serving as a volunteer at the association, you know, whether it's supporting something on campus that was important to you, if it's your academic department, whatever it is, there's a ton of ways to stay connected. And one thing that I do love about Aggieland is people are always ready and willing to have conversations. A lot of times those conversations are super, super friendly. People seem to be, at least in my experience, hopefully ready and willing to help you. So for example, in those career situations, if you use Find an Aggie, we have some cool stories about, you know, an individual picking out a company or a region where they want to live. And so they reach out to someone in the area and say, hey, just tell me about, you know, you work for Coca-Cola, I want to work for Coca-Cola. Tell me about what that experience is like. Tell me what your path was. Or, you know, oh, hey, you live in Dublin. That's my dream, is to move there. Can you tell me about what led you there? What's being an expat like? You know, and at a minimum, you're going to get to have a conversation that informs your thoughts about that. And again, it makes the world just a little bit smaller. I definitely have seen that happen. That's one thing I love about my job is I get to see that happen all the time. So I was gonna say, I think, so yeah, that would be, in terms of connecting, I think there's so many opportunities to, it's narrowing down how you want to connect and seeking out your passion and where it feels really genuinely authentic for you to plug in, and then taking the jump and doing it.
I guess I can share next. I will share my personal story about how I have found connections. And honestly, the two things I can say without any doubt is the two ways I have made the most meaningful connections in my entire life, both in Texas, when I was in Texas, and here in California and San Francisco, are through the queer community, through organizations that I have joined or gotten involved in or volunteered or even just attended an event, and Aggie organizations and groups of Aggies. Those are the two ways. I've made lots of friends through many, many, many methods, but those two seem to have the most robust, meaningful connections, friendships, job referrals and recommendations, career advice, personal advice, professional advice. And it's kind of gone both ways, me getting it from people and me receiving to others. When I moved here to San Francisco, I went to a ton of events, and I did make some good friends through some of those events, but I went to literally probably 5 to 6 networking events, probably almost every week, because I was really trying to build up my community and my street cred and working in marketing and tech and all that. And I did make some good connections with some of those communities, but the ones that were most consistent was I had been here for, I think it was like 4 months, and I was like, oh, I should probably plug in with the San Francisco Bay Area A&M Club. And so I did, and I went to their events, and I immediately made friends with some of the officers. We hang out at those events, but also sometimes just, one-on-one, we text each other. I'm connected with a lot of them on LinkedIn, on social media. Like, it's not just, it's not, just a professional thing. It's not just I'm looking for my next career path. These are important people in my life, and hopefully I'm important to them too. But they're really great people. And same thing with a lot of the queer organizations I've joined, both in Texas. I was involved with Aggie Allies and College Station and Pride Community Center, and the LGBTQ Professional Network. And I made some friends through all those organizations, all these queer organizations, that will be friends for life. We text, Zoom, phone call, semi-regularly. And, it's just, I think, look for organizations or groups or audiences where there's some overlap. You have some common ground so that you can start the conversation that makes it easier. And there's always, never doubt that there are Aggies everywhere you go, and there are queer organizations everywhere you go. Sometimes it may be harder in more rural areas to find those, but it's not impossible. And we're keep in mind that us and the center and the association are always here to help you with those connections as well.
So after, I guess, leaving Aggieland, I also have a little bit, I think, of a different positioning than a lot of traditional students, in that I am actually from College Station. So I still have family, and I have pretty strong ties to the region and to the BCS Aggieland and the Bryan College Station queer community. So I've been able to, just over social media, Facebook, whatever, stay in touch with those people. But I think that it's through them that I find other opportunities, so it's through connections that I have made on campus or off campus or whatever in my time in Aggieland, and maintaining those connections has enabled me to meet other groups of people who are totally unrelated to the Aggie experience, but because this Aggie was involved in this thing, now I get to do, this queer card game group or whatever, what have you. So I think that, leveraging the connections that you have, obviously the Aggie network is one of the tools at your disposal. The Queer Aggie network, I think, is particularly powerful. Yeah, I would say that has been the most effective thing, is to kind of talk to the people that I know and see if they're involved in any organizations. Outside of that, just cold sending emails to, hey, Dallas has a resource center. Are you looking for volunteers? They have, weekly events for different kind of demographics within the queer community. They have like a group of elders that gets together and chats, and they have, a group for trans and gender nonconforming youth, that meet there regularly. So that's been another thing. The queer community in Dallas is definitely very robust. So if you are in a larger city or larger metropolitan area, I would say not to be afraid to just like kind of cold call whatever groups are out there, do some looking on the internet. I try to kind of, we have an LGBT chamber of commerce up here in Dallas. And so like, for, I don't know, if you need to do banking or something like that, just finding reliable community connections is something that is a lot easier than I think most people think it is.
Can I also just add really quick? Because I feel like we all were like, hey, queer and Aggie. I do want to also say like, hey, I'm a huge comic book nerd and a big film and movie geek. And I definitely found community in those areas too, and connections in those areas. But again, a lot of times it's been overlap. It's been like a gay geek or gamer organization, or it's been I'm very big into LGBTQ plus film festivals, queer film festivals. And so like I've met a lot of people there. So there's still some amount of it that's an overlap between those two audiences. But I think, think maybe a little bit outside the box and think about like what are interests, hobbies, and ways that you would like to plug in. And I guarantee you there's some organization or group of people out there that would love to connect with you.
Thank you all for highlighting those. That was really great. So I wanted to take the time to give y'all the opportunity to highlight your specific organizations that you're here representing, whether that's schools or suggestions. If you want to start with the former student association, how can you help former students connect?
Absolutely. So there are a ton of ways to help former students connect. I know we were talking earlier, Texas A&M is obviously a huge university, and with a huge university comes a huge alumni base. So we actually in like last May hit the 500,000th graduate, which is kind of a huge milestone. There's not a lot of institutions that can say that. One thing that doesn't get talked about as much though is that, obviously there's the old ag culture and there's, this amazing tradition that goes along with Texas A&M, but we actually are a really young former student base. Like nearly half of that 500,000 has graduated since like 1997. So we skew really young, which is just sort of a unique opportunity for someone getting out of school and trying to make those connections. There are people that are, where you are in life and peers that you can connect with, as well as those that are a little further out. But all kind of like on an identifiable timeline. Those people that you might see like in 10 years, they're where I'd like to be, in 20 years are where I'd like to be. And Aggies tend not to meet strangers. That's one thing I love. So usually those folks are really receptive to just those cold emails. They feel really awkward at first, and then all of a sudden they start feeling less awkward. I know, and I think I would first focus on, there's lots of tools that are available, but that personal relationship building, I think, is just that huge first part. So if it's, if it's looking on Find an Aggie, and Find an Aggie is really fun. I'm a total nerd, and I will just own the fact that I'm a complete nerd, but it's one of those tools that's kind of fun to try to stump. So if you think of like a place in the world where like an Aggie lives, or like a company that an Aggie works for, since I have, the Baylor connection as well as the A&M connection, I'll try to find like, okay, how many Baylor folks are working at A&M, or like my higher ed world that I completely nerd out into, like, okay, how many Aggies work in higher education, which there's a huge network there. But just kind of playing around with that tool, whether it's, in the middle of the night, it's open 24/7. And you can just kind of see like, hey, what are some areas I'm interested in learning more about? Like if I could talk to someone and ask questions that knew a little bit about this, it's a great tool to kind of find out. In addition to geographic location, as well as, career, what they're doing, what they majored in, you can also find out things they were involved in. A lot of times that student involvement information is interesting. So if you're looking for just like-minded people, you can start there and then be like, okay, who lives within 200 miles of me, or who's doing something that sounds kind of cool that I'd like to learn more about. One of my coworkers is absolutely obsessed with Disney, loves Disney, everything Disney. So I joked one day, I was like, you ought to look up who's an Imagineer. And so he looked up, and there's like this whole network of Aggie Imagineers who work in the Disney universe. And he completely geeked out and proceeded to cold call them. So it's that alone is an amazing tool to just see if you can stump it, but then see who turns up in that, because it's like, okay, I think Imagineers are the coolest thing in the world. Well, wait, here's 10 Imagineers that popped up, and wait, 3 of them are from the Rio Grande Valley, which is where I'm from. And so all of a sudden it's like the world gets a little bit smaller. So it's amazing how close that, how that 500,000 gets, it can get really small really quick. And I know, and I hope that each of you has experienced this, but I like to say that, Texas A&M at, 68,000 students, or, whatever we are at right now. It's a huge town. The town I grew up in is 5,000 people. So, that's a huge city by any standard. But on campus, once you find that community, it becomes really small, really quick. And then hopefully as you go out into the world, that Aggie network piece and that, Find an Aggie and tools like that make it that much smaller, even more quickly. Getting involved in opportunities to give back to Texas A&M, and I don't mean financially, even though that's something that the association does, but of your talent and your time. So for example, with constituent networks like Aggie Pride is, being able to volunteer with those organizations, be part of making things better, more inviting on campus, seeing changes that you would have loved to see as a student. There's 11 constituents. Like I said, Aggie Pride will be the 12th. So there's 11 other constituent networks. There's A&M clubs just about everywhere. There's 200 in Texas alone. But they're literally, that's another fun thing to try to stump is, okay, where is there not an A&M club? And there usually is one. You may want to jump in and be super involved. That may not be your thing. Maybe you just want to go to muster every year, but there's a way to be involved in that and just stay connected that way. And kind of like Katie and Brad were saying as well, you take advantage of those resources of plugging in to, staying involved with your class, getting involved as a young alumni. We have a council that actually advises our organization about what young alumni are interested in, what they want to hear from us, because we as professionals could conjecture and guess things all day long, but it's a lot easier to get 30 or 40 actual young alumni and ask what that demographic is interested in. I think being willing and able to communicate back and just be a part and be involved is huge. There's all different ways to plug in, and I think like Katie and Brad were saying, sorry, I got derailed a little bit there, but you never know where those connections are going to take you. So it may start with, I know this Aggie, but then this Aggie knows somebody else, and I am introduced to their friend group. And then, yeah, exactly. And you never know where those can take you. And I think the relationship that you can build out of those connections are so authentic and can be just really cool and rewarding.
Awesome. That sounds...
Oh, sorry.
Nope, I was just going to say that sounds fun. But Brad and Katie, we wanted to give you the chance to answer the question for your organization. How does Aggie Pride help Aggies make connections?
For sure. I think piggybacking off what Kelly said, it kind of depends on how they want to be involved. But you think about the fact that there's over 600,000 plus like folks in the broader Aggie network. And so if you think about just a small fraction of those, there's probably honestly like 30,000 queer Aggies out there, and that's not even counting allies. So if you want to be specifically connected to the LGBTQ plus and or ally community, there's a lot of people out there. So don't hold back. I think, the easiest way, honestly, is connect with organizations like Aggie Pride. I don't mean to sound totally self-serving, but I think that if you, join our email list, we send out emails about upcoming events. We are really trying to do more stuff in other cities. So we definitely do want to broaden the horizons and present more opportunities. We're like just launching an Aggie Pride Ambassador program where we want Aggies in various cities who are LGBTQ plus or allies who want to maybe do a little bit more, but not spend lots of time, but basically just be a little bit of a welcoming committee to queer Aggies who move to those areas, or maybe just have never really connected with other Aggies in that area. Eventually, our hope is to have chapters in those cities, to have maybe some, 5 to 6 Aggies that will kind of form a chapter in those areas and start to do very low-key events, like let's meet up for a movie or dinner or happy hour or whatever, or maybe go as a group to muster or whatever. So we want to do those kind of things. Last year, we partnered with the San Francisco Bay Area Club on let's do a bar crawl during Pride Month. And people came that had never been to any A&M Club event, just because we were like, we're going to do a Pride event this time. And people just came out of the woodwork. I mean, we had probably a total of, I think it was like 25 or 30 people that showed up. And probably half of those had never been to any A&M event outside of Bryan-College Station. So, there's definitely opportunities. We're trying to build more opportunities. And so we will definitely be on the lookout for more information about our Aggie Pride Ambassador program. And then I'm going to hand it over to Katie to talk about a couple other things that are coming up soon. And then maybe circle back to me, and I might make one last maybe announcement at the very end.
Yeah. So in terms of how Aggie Pride can kind of help facilitate connections, I mean, so one of the things that you can do if you're interested, willing, able, is join any of the committees that we have. Currently, I think there's a need in all of the committees. We have marketing, programming, membership, and if you would like, kind of additional information about the function of those committees, if they're relatively self-explanatory, but feel free to, email us, and help us out. But additionally, we're also, in terms of programs, not just the ambassador program is something that we're working on, but we're also working with the Pride Center at A&M to kind of augment and expand their mentorship program to kind of include a professional mentorship component for those people who are looking for that opportunity. We also usually do like reunion tailgates. I don't want to make any promises about the one this fall because of the coronavirus situation that's happening. But tentatively, typically in the fall, we have a reunion tailgate on campus. If coming back to Aggieland to make some of those connections happen is something that you're looking forward to. I know I've gone to those and seen people, that I haven't seen in years and years. So that's always like a fun thing to reconnect with old people who maybe weren't even part of your class. They were 5 years older than you when you were a freshman or something. So that's, again, like a fun opportunity. I would just say that being part of our network, kind of as there will be more opportunities for connection as we kind of grow this ambassador program, ideally into chapters and this mentorship program. We also have a series of panels this June. Every Tuesday at 6:30. Next week is about advancing your career. That'll be a really cool conversation and discussion. And I'm sure that any of the panelists would be willing, if you reached out to them, to kind of connect with you further and talk about their experiences in more detail. And then on June 30th, that is when we are doing, it's our last panel of the month, but we're doing kind of like a pay it forward series. Like, what would you like to see? How can we better help you make those connections? And so we're kind of soliciting feedback to see how we can improve and what types of interactions, engagements, connections that our community of queer Aggies are looking for.
Can I just add one other quick thing?
But we got a bunch of questions, so.
Oh, we do? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Let's get to the questions then. Ooh, let's do it.
All right, so our first was actually a pre-submitted question. So if anyone wants to take it, feel free. What do you think the biggest thing that community leaders in Aggieland can do to make the campus and community a safer, more welcoming environment for all?
I'll jump in and just provide a couple comments. I think holding the Aggie community accountable for what we say. You know, we always say that, you know, we're the Aggies are we. You know, you look at our core values, all of those core values are inclusive and they celebrate things that are great. And I think the more that we, you know, ring the bell that hate is not an Aggie value, I think the better off we'll be. But I think holding accountable to, you know, we're the friendliest campus in the world. I think, yeah, hold each other accountable. I think, you know, if we say it, we need to live it. That needs to be evident for people who are on our campus.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo that, but I will add a slightly different perspective that I will say, especially from a former student perspective, but then also from a student perspective, if there are a lot of former students out there that they did not have a good experience on campus. And so I think it's important for us to always remember there are people that their memories about Texas A&M are not positive ones at all. And so I think we need to acknowledge that. When I was at A&M, there was really almost no resources for the LGBTQ plus community. I was afraid to be out. So it's difficult. I understand that. And current students still face some of those problems. You know, not as much as in the 90s when I was there, I hope, but on an individual basis for sure. So I think it's important to acknowledge there's still work to do, hold other Aggies and the entire university community accountable. And then I would say on a positive note, one thing that I think could be done is more cross collaboration and co-programming and more sharing of spaces among different groups. So even if it's not a direct overlap, I think that does help to expand people's mind and educate and hopefully, you know, help them see things from a different perspective. And that goes both ways, not just for people having different perspectives on the LGBTQ plus community, but also the LGBTQ plus community having different perspectives on other areas within the Aggie community as well.
I mean, I think we need to be intentionally, actively intersectional. That can be a great way to kind of make our environment, whether it's on campus or whether it's at a meeting or a club chapter or whatever. I think that one, having some sort of statement that just is very clear, like what we're about, what we tolerate, what we don't. Because in my unfortunate experience, not every Aggie abides by those core values that do celebrate all of us. And, you know, like Brad and Kelly have both spoken at, kind of to holding people accountable, and I absolutely do believe in that. But we have to hold ourselves accountable and also set standards at the beginning about what we're about. And if we find that any of us are failing at any of those intersections of inclusive community, then I think that we need to have actionable steps to remedy that, so that our community knows that we're always committed to being better than we have been. Yeah, I mean, I think the environment kind of speaks for itself, and I think that it can be a challenge to be inclusive coming from A&M. I think we all know that it's perceived as being very much one way. The reality isn't necessarily reflective of that, but I think that we do have to work harder to make our spaces I don't think we can guarantee that they'll be a safe space, but I think that we can call them safer spaces if we make it known that we're here for our community.
Just as a side note, I will say the Student Services Building is amazing, and the Pride Center itself is one of the coolest spots on campus. It just has to be. And I certainly hope that just having a space like that it's not tucked away, it's out in the center of everything. And I don't think you could walk into that area without smiling. It just is infectiously happy. So I hope having that space alone helps to make that impact and create that inclusivity as well.
Thank you all. Some really powerful answers and some things for us to think about. So our next question, is there a way to see the Aggie LGBT network affiliation in the Find an Aggie feature? Can you search for stuff that way?
Good question. You should be able to. If not now, we should be able to make that a possibility. A lot of that comes with the information that we're able to put in. Something that has an output is as good as the inputs that we have. So as long as we're information sharing, we should be able to make that available. Also, too, there's a lot of really great resources too, where we can work together and the networks can communicate out to their full constituency a little better than they'd be able to do on their own. And so we can help with that too, and help facilitate just getting the word out.
Just really quickly, I was going to add that I can tell you for a fact right now, what you can do is you can search if there's an option to add how you were involved on campus, as Kelly mentioned earlier. And currently the two that we look at, and I'm going to be honest, there's not a lot of people who put either one of these down, but are people Aggies can put down that they were involved with LGBTQ Aggies, or I think it may even still be in the system as GLBT Aggies, because that's what it was at the time when that was added to the system, or Aggie allies. The issue, of course, at hand, which I think is what Frankie's getting to, or maybe alluding to, is, hey, often queer people can be an invisible minority, and so it's important to respect people's privacy, but at the same time, then how do you find those people and connect with them, right? So it makes it much more challenging, and that's something that we definitely plan to work with the association on. Aggie Pride Board wants to work more on, and we need to, collaborate, put our heads together, and figure out what's the right solution to that.
Yeah, I'll just add too, for all students who are involved on campus and just basically are on campus, going to your Aggie profile. So the profile you have to set up to order your Aggie ring, literally to make your appointment, that's your Aggie profile for life. That you can share however much. It's basically like a social media profile. So you can add whatever information you want to it. You can add a picture. You want people to see who you are. You can add, your college information is automatically there, your degree information is automatically there, but making sure that that information is updated so that you make sure the right email address is in there so we can get in touch with you. Also, to adding your student involvement, whether that is with any organization on campus, that just makes it easier for those groups that you were involved in to reach back out to you so that you can maintain that connection as the years go on.
So you can search by sort of all clubs and organizations. Is that what you're saying, Kelly?
So all of them that are coded, which a ton of them are coded. So in fact, I was having a meeting today with some of the folks from SGA, and for one of the SGA group, and we've made this more robust since, but looking at an audience for SGA specifically, we had over 9,500 folks that we could send an email to. So basically the unit, and here's just another kind of aside, the university does not provide roster information. But if a student leader would like to provide any roster information, whether you're on muster committee or whatever that is, and I would say with privacy concerns, make sure that the students are okay with sharing that information. But in terms of, if you want to say, hey, we want to be able to keep in touch with you when you're a former student, we want to be able to reach back out to you, and we want you to be able to reach back out to us, keeping that that information current is really useful. Additionally, like kind of Brad was talking about, that's one thing I can look for additionally, is that if you do take part in a constituent network and you want to be listed as part of that constituent network and have that appear on your profile, that's probably something that can easily happen.
Awesome, thank you. We have so many clubs and organizations now that work with the center and stuff. That'd be a cool way to do it. Again, not advocating anyone outing themselves, but if that is some way someone wants to build that connection, I think it's cool that we now have that option. All right, and so this is for Kelly specifically. You mentioned that there are a lot of young former students. Does the association have a program designed for younger former students?
So right now, the primary focus of our Young Alumni is our Young Alumni Advisory Council, which is a group of about 40 former students who are 10 years out and younger. And basically they serve as an advisory capacity on 3 different committees, and they advise us in how the association should reach out, what kind of events young alumni are interested in, how we reach young alumni, what kind of messaging are we providing them, what are resources that they're interested in. Basically, we use them as a sounding board for, hey, we as a staff think this is a good idea, but if we were to do this, what would be your reaction? Just because I think it's important to get that, make what we're doing authentic and make sure that we're working towards efforts that are going to resonate with that group. So that's a great group to get to be a part of. There's also a really cool event that they throw every fall. And right now it's on the schedule for November. So we're hoping it's far enough out where that can happen, but we do a Young Alumni Weekend, which is a big tailgate. It's kind of a good deal. It's reasonably priced, and it's all the food you can eat, beverages, things like that. And it's a good time just to kind of be, right next to Kyle Field if you're into that, and just kind of hang out with folks and just have a good space to kind of enjoy a nice fall day.
Do you know who we're playing for that tailgate?
I do believe it is Vanderbilt. At least the last time I looked. I haven't committed that to memory yet, but I'm pretty sure I know that
one. We are out of questions, but we do have some time. So if anyone in our audience wants to comment or message them directly to the center, we can definitely still take those. But since we have the time, I wanted to see if there was anything that y'all wanted to touch base on that you hadn't been able to address. I know you've gone over a lot of resources and stuff, and it's been pretty exciting, but just final thoughts or anything?
I'll chime in. Why not? I haven't talked in 5 minutes. So one thing I do want to make sure everybody is aware of, since this is Pride Month, and since, to my knowledge, every single, unfortunately, Texas in-person Pride event has been canceled, postponed, or put onto the virtual space, which there are several online events. But we thought, why not have our own Pride party that's a virtual online thing? So we're doing that. So hopefully everyone, we love to see hundreds of queer LGBTQ plus Aggies and allies come online on June 26th. It's going to be a super fun party. We'll have drag performances, multiple drag performers actually. We're going to have Queen of Aggieland, Paris Amore, will be our MC, and we'll be doing multiple songs. We will also have Sirloin, one of the drag kings in the BCS area. Honey B, who is in the Houston area, but is a former student, and many folks know. And Devin Lamore, who is a new up-and-coming drag queen in the area with some connections back to A&M as well. So, plus we also will have DJ Steven Jusco, who is one of the regular DJs at Halo and also on Northgate and in Houston as well, who's also a former student. So these are all queer former students who are volunteering their time to put on a great show so everyone can log in and just have a good virtual Pride party with all their fellow queer Aggies and allies and just have a good time. So we hope you all on June 26th will come join us. We'll be promoting over email and via social media. It'll be a Zoom event, so people can log in. They do not have to have, of course, sound or video on if they don't want to. If they just want to watch, dance in their room in their pajamas, that's whatever you want to do. And then just enjoy the drag performances, enjoy the dance party, and just have a good time connecting with fellow like-minded Aggies and allies. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. And then if there's other questions, of course, we're glad to talk about other stuff. And Katie might have some other things to add too.
I'll share as well, just as a side note, since you mentioned Paris, her performance at Aggieland was amazing. I mean, completely stellar, like tears happening. So that alone, worth it.
Thank you, Kelly Malone. We appreciate that chat.
So we have a couple more questions and then we'll close out. But what is something y'all are working on that you're excited for that we can support and get involved with?
So I will chime in. So we will not have, we won't open until the spring semester, but we'll have some information in the fall happening. But the association has an ambassador program, a current student organization called Aggie Network Student Ambassadors. That is open to any student, whether a grad student, whether they're an undergrad student. We want the depth and breadth. We want the full Aggie network represented within our ambassadors because we want to show how amazing the student body at Texas A&M is. And what those individuals do is they work with the association, they represent us at different events, they have the opportunity to kind of come and be a part of things that we're doing at the association. So I just put a plug in for if you're looking for a way to get involved with the Aggie Network as a current student, that's a really cool opportunity. You get to work with my team, which I'm biased, we're a pretty fun team, but we dearly love our ambassadors and would love to invite anyone who's interested and to learn more to reach out to us.
I would say that, in terms of things to be excited about, I think we've already spoken to it a couple times, myself and Brad, but we have, again, our own ambassador program that is kind of hopefully going to evolve into, having chapters of LGBTQ Aggie Pride in other cities so that you can have more and more robust opportunities to connect further. And then the other thing that I'm most excited about personally is going to be our collaboration with the Center on a Mentorship program that is still in the works. So TBD in the dates, but if you, are just super excited about any of the things that are coming up, we can always use, some power on the ground or on the keyboard to help us achieve some of our organizational goals. We always need more people who are willing to help out. Yeah, I think we've said most of the things that we're most excited about. I'm psyched for the Pride Party. I think that we need some joy right now, and we have some wonderful performers, queer performers of color who are going to be just giving it their all, and I urge you all to support them.
Yeah, agreed. There's really not much more to add except that you know, I hope we will, if not this year, definitely next year, we will be having our annual reunion tailgate again. So that's always a huge event that we usually have like 300 plus queer Aggies and allies that attend. So that's a big one. If you've never attended, you should at least keep it on your radar. And we will give an update. And if we're not able to have one in person this year, we've talked about doing something virtual for that as well. So that's to be discussed and to determine all the details. And then just the fact that we have Aggie Pride is hosting or co-hosting 6 events this month during Pride Month. So really having virtual events has kind of opened up the door for us to not have to be as worried about cost prohibitive and worry about doing things via distance and like, oh, well, I can't attend the Pride event in Houston because I live in Dallas or I'm in Chicago or whatever. So in a way, it's kind of opened up some doors for us, and I hope people will take advantage of that and will join these online discussions. We have 5 more panels this month, and you can find all that information on our Facebook page as well as on our Eventbrite page. And I saw a couple of people posted in the chat asking about how to find out about the Pride party. I'll go and drop our Eventbrite in that chat window as a comment. And then I'm sure, I know for a fact, the center will be helping to promote that as well. So, but I'll drop that Eventbrite link so that you all have it handy, and feel free to register now. It's free registration. We just want people to register so that we can send out the Zoom link to you. Thanks.
I totally just thought of one other thing. So sorry about that. So with our Young Alumni Program, there is an award that's available called our 12 Under 12 recognition. So if anybody knows any Aggies that are 12 years out or less that are doing some outstanding things to be celebrated, definitely send in a recommendation that they be nominated, encourage them to self-submit their information, and you can find information about that at aggienetwork.com or on our Facebook page, which is @the association.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad. I was going to follow up with the who, what, where of the Pride Party, but the network will be sharing that in the comments. So thank you all so much. Sort of some final thoughts from the center. I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to come out and speak at these times. And so we really appreciate the association and Aggie Pride doing that. Some housekeeping notes. The center is the store that we had up at tx.ag/LGBTQ store is still open. We will be selling our shirts, masks, and flags to June 9th. And so that's very exciting. Also, you can check out a full range of the Pride events. We posted our Pride calendar yesterday on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And so that has not only Aggie Pride's events, but also the Pride Community Center, some of the bigger events held throughout the state, and also Cushing has a virtual exhibit, so that's very cool. So thank you to the University Libraries. So definitely come and check out our calendar and the other things that we have going on. Would anyone else like to make any final statements?
I just want to say thanks to everybody for participating today on the panel and everyone who has watched and submitted questions. And the more these conversations we can have, the more we can do for our community. So let's keep the conversation going. Just because we allocated an hour today doesn't mean these conversations should stop. So feel free to message us anytime on our social media channels or email us at aggiepride@aggienetwork.com. And we are here for you, and we want to continue this conversation.
Yeah, I would echo that. Thank you too. And just if the association can be of any assistance or answer any questions or just be a resource, please don't hesitate to let us know. If you want to find campus programs where I work, it's on the second floor right across from the ring office, and we're always happy to help. So thanks for letting me be a part tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Aggie Pride is we're here to connect our community, to serve you guys, and I would just say that, you know, during this Pride Month, we are cognizant and we remember where we came from and to who we owe a lot of the freedoms that we as queer people are able to see now. So I would say that we honor and recognize all of the marginalized groups that have fought for queer liberation, and Black Lives Matter, and they matter to Aggie Pride. So we're here for you.
Agree 200%. Yes. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, thank you all for those thoughts. With that, we're going to conclude the panel.
Bye. Thank you.